All right, hello everybody. My name is NBK Rosinski and from Run It Back, and today I'm joined by the one and only Nathan NBK Schmidt. Welcome, NBK. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, of course. Always a pleasure.
Fantastic. All right, well, NBK, you had such an extremely rich career in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. You won a major with Team LDLC and with Team Envy, among other numerous titles. The list just keeps going on. You played the game for so many years, and my first question basically is, why did you decide to switch to Valorant, and why at this particular time?
Um, that's a pretty wide question that I'm going to try to narrow down to
Okay, okay.
some things. I think first of all, I think as a human being, when you do something for an extremely long time, it is bound for you to want to have some change and to try something new sometimes, especially in such a high pressure environment that is the high level of esport, and especially Counter Strike because it's constantly changing tournaments every weekend and stuff like that. And I've been doing that for 11 years as a top pro player. So there's that first part, and then there's a more internal part of um, finding the right motivation and the right approach to keep on being challenged in a game and in teams, and just finding the next thing to go after. And I think the online era as well, like hurt that to some degree because of course lands are coming back, but
Mm.
um, it's still like in the background something is running, like just this is tough to just stay motivated truly. And I think in high level competition, regardless of what it is, you need to have that in order to be on the next level and to really be on the winning dominating teams. So like I'm sure I could have stayed and be in top 20, top 15, even top 10, but it wouldn't have been the same thing, and I wouldn't have been true to myself either. So those things combined, among others, how I see the future of Valorant and comparing it with Counter Strike. Um, all of those things combined just then boiled down to one thing, like what do I want to do on a daily basis when I come in the computer, and what I want to compete for and what I want to achieve next. And so I think that's when the move to Valorant became pretty evident that um, I want to be challenged on a different level, in a different way, and I think coming to Valorant was the the best way to do that, simply.
Okay, so basically finding a new challenge for yourself in a completely different environment, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a solid part of it,
Mm-hmm.
because for me to be challenged means that I'm happy with what I'm doing, and that I will push myself above my own limits, pretty much like push them, and therefore bringing the people that are around me competitively to do the same. And um and that's what I want to do again. That's where I want to be again, in that mental state. And then I'm sure that success will follow no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. There is one thing that you did not mention though. So your last team in CSGO, the major big team that you were part of was OG. So
Hmm.
so-called the behemoth, that was supposed to be the team that competes up there with the likes of Astralis and all those other teams. Although the formation left a lot to be desired. Do you think that OG's failure to live up to expectations is part of the reason for your transition to Valorant as well?
Well, first, I wouldn't agree that OG was a failure as to what we have done. We have met almost all of our goals that we have set up for ourselves. Um, in order, sorry, which was winning a tournament, and we came
Okay.
second to two major tournaments of last year, like not majors, but like big tournaments. But aside from that, we entered the top 10. We were very solid. It took us time to get there, but we got there. And we became a very solid team. And the fact that we didn't bootcamp for a year and a half, that we couldn't get together for a team like this, I think, didn't help. And yet we made the best of what we could because it was the same for every team pretty much. So, yeah, I think to start things, I think it was not a failed project whatsoever. And how the project evolved, both for the team and myself within that team, made me also realize that, yeah, maybe I needed to go to something different, because creating that international team was a big challenge that I really enjoyed, and grinding with it and getting there was very challenging and something very interesting for sure. And I learned a lot along the way throughout that time in OG. And in the end, I still kind of lost it in the very last moments. Even though when I was playing, I was, you know, I just had the same confidence, the same output in the game, and I was just the same person that I was as a competitor. But outside of that, it was becoming harder to really push more and more. And so um, then in the end, on top of that, I got benched at the end of OG. Of my adventure there, and so he gave me more than anything time to reflect on what I wanted to do in the future and my different options, and that ended me doing this, just making the transition because I felt that that's what was right.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's leave CS:GO behind for a little bit. Mm,
Hmm.
so you've announced your transition to Valorant not long ago.
Yeah.
What are your current plans in terms of making that transition right now? Is it to just chill out, stream, grind solo queue, or do you have kind of a plan to make a mixed team, maybe join some smaller tournaments to get into the nick of things, or are we actually going to see you compete on a higher level sooner than expected?
So when coming into Valorant, I didn't come randomly. I already watched several games, how the game was being played, what you could see from it, how I see myself within the whole system, and not necessarily as which agent I'm going to play or which role, but more how the game is on a global level, in terms of map control, defenses, what can be done, the possibilities, the fact that it's going to be an evolving game, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So that was the very first part that I watched and that I felt very confident with, as in how to approach it and to be a part of that. And now I'm in a phase where I'm just grinding as much as possible in terms of learning the characters and all like the small bits. And so what's very useful with me streaming, well, first of all, I'm enjoying it, which is a very big difference. Like I'm really enjoying streaming and playing and exchanging and learning on stream. And the fact that it's so interactive, when I ask questions, people that know like all the small bits give me the feedback. So like it's a learning process that makes it go much faster than anything else. And that's really how I see it. It's like there's both sides of, I do it because I love it, and at the same time it makes me learn faster than if I were to play solo and just like watching YouTube videos or something. Someone that needs to experience the things and then to play with them. Because when I started playing, like for example, Killjoy on stream, people were like, "Oh, you need to learn this setup, that setup. You need to do that thing." And I was like, "Dude, chill. I'm just gonna check the basics of it, like maybe like the basic setup, the basic ideas of the setups, and then I'm gonna just try to create one or two of my own, and then just see, how comfortable I can get with things and to make it compute together." And so far that whole part has been going very good. Um, Watching streams and pro plays as well. I know, because of the experience that I have, I think what are the right and the wrong plays in general when I see players do things in official games. And so yeah, what I try to do is just to experience as much as possible myself being in a game. Solo queue is not the best environment to learn because it's much more about being comfortable with your own character and like the abilities and how to use them fast, and so how to be smooth in that whole operation. But I'm especially trying to play a lot of 10 men with like very good players, and I've done one with players that were like from finest Excel, so like actual top European players, and I got destroyed because the approach is completely different. Because they know how to combine 2 or 3 abilities at the same time to just take a bomb site, and um, and then use the ultimate perfectly and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not talking about crossfires, but just how to combine everything and to be on the receiving end of it. And when you're on a server and you take it in the face, it always goes much faster than if you watch on on streams and you're just like, oh yeah, you can counter it by doing this or that. When you're in game, it's like you have half a second to make the decision on how to counter them, and that's the main difference. And so I'm trying to do this both the solo queue and streaming to just be comfortable with all characters, and then try to play with top pros and like more closed circles, sorry, in a way, to see how it is when you're actually playing against those teams or those good players that I've worked and stuff. And then when it comes down to finding a team, I don't think the step of being in a mixed team would add that much to my learning curve. Because getting into the cycle of playing good teams, playing with good players, and like them having experience on what works and what doesn't, I think is going to be more valuable in the longer, like midterm, long term, to just start on like the what is good on the pro games basis and to work off of that instead of like maybe creating bad habits or bad ideas. Because I just want to get into it with the right direction straight and not just finding the direction and then going into it. I just want to. I mean, this is the whole learning process. Like I'm learning from every game that I'm watching, and then I just want to get into a team and apply that instantly to be at the top level.
Okay, okay. Well, hopefully we'll see you strive for that top level. I don't know if by the end of the year would be a fair timeline to give you, or do you think it'll take a little longer for you to actually get on a team?
I am hoping and I'm thinking it's going
Hmm.
to take much less than that.
Okay, okay,
I expect to be ready to play and like at a good level in like a few weeks from now, like 3 4 weeks from now. I expect
okay.
to be ready to play.
It's pretty soon then.
Um, yeah, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna play and I'm gonna have a team, obviously, but like this is in my mind, like because one of my best qualities from my time in Counter Strike is to be able to learn things very fast and to like just absorb them very fast and to then uh, build them into my own mind and then spit something out that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so that's why with Valorant, like just watching few games, like I didn't watch like 1,000 games, but like I watched some of the games with like the top teams, and it already gave me like a lot of good ideas on how to tweak things or approach them, what's important, what's not important, and just by watching several games. And so I expect to be ready. I will not be at a great level, but I expect to be ready to compete in a few weeks from now when I will also know what kind of direction I want in terms of role to play and agents to play specifically. This is also a big one, quite obviously, because
Yeah.
I think individuals are very important in in Valorant more than in Counter Strike, for example. So being ready individually is going to be very important. But yeah, it's something that takes time. It's not something that you can rush,
Of course.
and so I'm aware of all of that. I'm very aware of like all those sort of timelines, and I'm not trying to rush the process whatsoever. I just have an idea in my head and I stick to it, and then we see how it changes along the path. But I'm quite confident I have a good idea on time frames and how to make things work.
Fantastic. I'm sure that everybody's will be extremely excited to see you compete on the competitive Valorant stage. All right. Well, talking about slotting into a Valorant team, given your extensive experience in Counter Strike, do you imagine yourself taking up the role of the IGL?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely an option. It's definitely an option. I've been working hard on it while I was more on my time off. I've learned a lot from the OG period in terms of that, and I think a lot of those things that I've learned from especially Alexei leading and his way of calling, can be some way applied to Valorant. And on top of that, I've been working with a great sports psychologist to be ready for that Valorant arc
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible, and especially regarding just leadership, because I think when entering a team, or especially now in Valorant, um, there are certain expectations from the outside or from even inside from teammates. Like I have a track record that makes teams that I join be expected to do good things, and so I've been working very hard on all of that, especially the leadership aspect, because I think I can have a good impact, like a good positive impact to my teams, like I have in the past, but even more. Like I always want more. I always want to be better, want to be a better teammate, better player, and all of that. And so yeah, it is something that I've worked on. It's not a condition, obviously, depending on the team that I would join. But it's something that I'm definitely toying with, and that I would like to do. I think there's so much to be done, especially in such a young scene with so many young players that just need direction more than anything, because they have the raw skill, the talent, the better fitting for the game that I would have individually, for example. And it's just a matter of putting those pieces together in a way that makes sense so that everyone can be exploited properly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you manage to do that, I think in the state of the scene right now, how it is, I think you can reach something that is close to domination over the scene, because I think there is there's still a lot of things to improve, and it's normal, it's like the beginning of the game,
Yeah.
and so many young players um, that you need to guide, and like sometimes like small things that are adding up, like all the small things are gonna add up to like victories in the end.
Mm.
And with the experience that I have, that's what I can bring to a lot of teams, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. All right. Well, now talking about the VCT, the Valorant Champions Tour. I don't know how much you've been following, how much you know about how everything works in the VCT, but I'm pretty sure you have
Mhm.
a broad idea.
Yeah.
Um, do you like the competitive circuit that Riot Games have implemented? And perhaps are there any improvements that you would make to make it an even better way of making those tournaments throughout the year?
Mhm. Um, the way that I see it, and I didn't talk to Riot about that, and how they're doing it. But the way I see it, I think that they're like trying a lot of things, like in terms of formats, circuit, and all of that. And at the end of the day, um, I think the final product in esport for Valorant is going to be there in like maybe 2 years from now, because they're obviously new to like the FPS scene in a way, and so I think they're good from both worlds. There's obviously Counter-Strike and Valorant now
Yeah.
in the FPS scene, and I think they're good things on both sides, and it's just a matter of like mixing a little bit of both in order to have the best product in the end, I think. And so I don't I don't have the confidence to say what's good and what not in the whole system and approach that Riot has right now with Valorant. But it's something that I'm definitely interested in talking to them and working with them as much as possible by giving my feedback and what I think about things if they're open to it, to help the scene grow and develop as much as possible, because it's been the same in Counter Strike as well, where there have always been a lot of discussions regarding tournament formats, all that kind of stuff, and there was always like a sort of open dialogue in a certain way, except for the Valve sponsored event where the format is like very clear cut,
Yeah.
and it is what it is. So yeah, it's just I think in general that whole approach that Riot has of taking feedback and talking to players and people, I think is very healthy and good. And so I mean, I'm expecting, it's my expectation, I don't know whether it's going to be true or not, to be able to talk to them and to be able to share with them
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
Because now that I moved to Valorant, I want Valorant to be the bigger scene and the biggest esport.
Obviously, yeah.
So so it would make sense for me to want to work, because I'm interested in it, to want to work on making the scene as good as possible and the tournament as good as possible for esport. So yeah, um, I don't have any judgment on the format right now. I think it's, if anything, it's just a bit complicated to follow on the outside, to know exactly the steps, and when you know it, it's pretty straightforward. And when you don't know it, it's pretty uh, challenging to know what stage is what it represents, all that following, you know.
Yep.
So I think it's just a work in progress, and it's hard to judge right now how things are.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, given your experience and long time standing in Counter-Strike, I think it's just a matter of time before Valorant Riot devs reach out to you for anything. So yeah,
Hopefully, I'm very open for discussions.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I'd be more than happy to speak with him.
great, fantastic. Um, okay, following the notion of Riot Games, now let's move on to the developers and how they're handling the actual game. So
Mhm.
I think if we compare Counter-Strike to Valorant in terms of updates,
Yeah,
I think it's fair to say that Valorant gets a lot more major updates
definitely.
on a constant basis than CS:GO, and obviously this translates to the meta, which not only affects the casual players but also the pro scene. Um, do you think is this something that appeals to you, that the meta keeps shifting, or do you think it's kind of problematic up to some extent?
I think it's a good thing for everything and everyone. It's not good for the teams that are dominating on one patch and that maybe want on the other one. I don't expect it to be as hard as League, for example, where like you can really change your approach, and like some compositions will be completely useless and stuff like that. Because in Valorant, especially with what they've shown that they've upped the price of the abilities, I think the direction is that we want 70% gunfights and 30% abilities, like something around those lines, I think. And so that's where there will still be, if the team is better at shooting, most likely they will win. Period. And and so I think those meta change are good to like keep interest and like keep a rotation, and like it's good, I think, for the pro players to have to adapt and to work on new things constantly. I think it's good for the viewers also to be like, oh, you know, maybe that play is good now. I should try it in my ranked games, and then see how it goes. And then, you know, it creates like a sort of um, attraction for casual players to watch the games and be interested in it. So so I think that that whole meta change is a good thing. I think I think it brings a lot of positives, and even outside of just the meta aspect, having developers that really make sure the game is like bug free, good on many aspects, is a good thing.
Yeah,
I think it doesn't bring many negatives
right.
to that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, definitely, as you said, it definitely affects the top teams, right? Because they have to constantly adapt. To
Yeah.
they just can't just go on one year with just the same composition. It's just impossible with the rate of the changes that Riot developers keep introducing. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
and
Mhm.
it's also a thing, just to add to that
Yeah.
as a last thing. Um, when we're talking about pro players and what they're being paid for to be the best team, um, you know, that's the whole thing. We're not game developers. We're not map designers, that kind of stuff. We're pro players. You give us a game, you give us the elements, and then we have to make the best out of it,
Mhm.
and we have to be the best team possible. And I think that's the approach that we should have. And then it's Riot's job to make the game as attractive as possible and as big as possible as an esport to bring the viewership in order to like mix both, to have like a good esport with top players and to have a lot of viewers and an interesting game for everyone to then go on and play themselves. So at the end of the day, for pro players, you give them anything and they have to be the best. That's what pro players are here for.
Yeah, that's the job, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So since you're coming into Valorant, I don't know if you intend on basically, my question is whether you will be focused on individualistic awards. Like, if we look at back at CSGO, you were named, I have to read this because I cannot remember it, but you were named the 5th best player of 2013, the 17th best
Yeah.
player of 2014, and the 9th of 2015 by hltv. Is that something that you are going to care about in Valorant or not really at this point?
Um, the truth is, it's never something that really was a motivation. I have I have very little interest into personal accolades like that.
Right.
Um, because I look at team games at the very essence of it, that if you win as a team, and maybe you're gonna carry the game, so it's great. You know, I would be proud of myself if I can carry my team to the game, whether it is in calling or in playing. But there's also the undeniable fact that if you lose, you generally lose as a team and you win as a team. And so my focus has always been on that, and that's why I took the roles that I took every time in my teams. I was just, you know, adapting myself to what was needed in order to be good, and it always worked out really. So those are just more bonus things if they happen more than anything. But I'm also, you know, pretty realistic in terms of expectations as well. Like I'm not the 18-year-old kid that is gonna focus on fragging and jumping around and raise satchels and then just you know, ult them and that kind of stuff. My goal will be to make the team work, and individually, I'm always gonna work hard to be up to par to those guys, to the other ones that are gonna be the more carry focused and kill focused in a team, because you need to have good players and good aimers at every level of your team. It's not because you're taking a more supportive role that you are allowed to not shoot people. That's a mentality that I've always never understood. It's just if you want the best team, all 5 players must be outstanding aim-wise and game understanding and all of that. And so yeah, that would be a bonus. But my focus will 100% always be on the team and making the team work. And that's all of it. I'm not gonna focus more on that than anything else because I've never focused on it. It's just, you know, it's cool
Yeah.
if I am. It doesn't matter if I'm not, as long as my team is winning.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of best players and whatnot,
Mhm.
I don't know how much of the Valorant Champions Tour games you have watched so far, but if you had to name from what you saw that people or teams that impressed you, who do you think is
Mhm.
up there currently? Or yeah.
Yeah. I mean, worldwide it's a bit hard to to follow every team. I don't have the experience in this scene for that. In Europe, mostly, I've seen that Fnatic are pretty solid in terms of their approach, and especially in Iceland with the whole post-plant meta.
Hmm.
I think that they brought something to the table that was interesting, and so you see that they have some um, clarity and like direction in what they want to do. Even though individually, I don't think they're the best team out there. I think they just have a good direction and they have a solid, yeah, approach. I think Liquid individually is excellent. I just think that they lack that direction that Fnatic has, for example. You can see that it's a bit more scrappy in the way they approach the games, and you don't necessarily have a whole vibe of like a way that the team wants to approach the game and their direction. FPX I'm very curious about because I know Angel very well from back in Counter Strike, and I'm sure he's gonna have like a good approach to what to do, and especially himself a good individualistic aggressive approach and how to make everything work around it, because that's how it was in Counter Strike. So I think because of how new the game is in the esports scene, there are still so many things to explore, and I think the scene is going to be vastly different in 3 years from now, when everyone is going to be 100% comfortable with the game. And yeah, American games I have followed a bit less because of the time zone is a bit harder
Yeah.
to watch the games. I'm obviously very curious about Sentinels because they still seem to be extremely good at this point in time. And you know there must be something good, simply enough more than the individual performances. So yeah, I mean, as a whole, what I'm very interested in is more the tactical aspect and what teams bring to the table on that end, more than individual performances. Because when you have a direction, that's when individuals are going to shine. And when you know what you're doing and you don't have to think about what you would want to do in the game, individuals are going to be good no matter what. And so that's what I look at. And so I just search for like those direction and approaches that different teams have. And then you just count on who has the best individualities, and then you just see who is the better team in by mixing all of those elements.
All right, fantastic. Um, all right, NBK, I just have one more question for you because you've given me really extensive answers, and that's just fantastic. So this one is kind of a lighthearted one. If you could pick 4 players with yourself to make a team, who would they be and why?
Damn, I don't know the scene
Difficult
enough.
question. Okay, difficult question.
Yeah, it's tough. I couldn't say because I just don't know the scene and the players enough. So like I don't
Yeah.
know what's training, how to put them together, and all of that. So give me a bit of time, a month or two, and I'll get back to you
Yeah, okay,
to see
fantastic. I'll be
to see
waiting
how
for
that
that.
works.
I'll be waiting for that then. Fantastic.
Yep.
All right, NVK, it has been really great to have you here today with me. Your answers have been phenomenal and given us a lot of insight. And on behalf of Run It Back, we wish you all the best in your endeavors in Valorant. That's crazy. Not many people expected you to be here, so really fantastic. And all the best of luck on your transition.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nothing has leaked up until the announcement. It was a big
Yeah,
success. It was a
it
big
was.
surprise,
It
and
was. It was
yeah,
indeed. Yeah.
so far it's working very good. I'm very happy about
Yeah.
the transition, and yeah,
Yeah.
see you soon for some tournaments, hopefully.
Hopefully, hopefully. Okay. All right. Enjoy your time in Valorant then. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.